It's showtime!
Even though double banners still feel very fresh and new, are they enough for the constantly growing roster of characters that we have? Double banners were actually received somewhat negatively by many people in the community when they were first announced. Having less time to save for characters you were waiting for was a concern for many people, or having two characters you really want be on the same banner together like we have currently with Hu Tao and Yelan. This situation can certainly seem pretty bad, especially if you want both Hu Tao and Yelan. The plus side here is, at least with situations like this, it created one of the best damn weapon banners we have ever seen. So yeah, you may have two characters overlapping that you both want, which can suck, but at least they're going to come around twice as fast than they did before. I mean, what happens if before they reran back to back, at the beginning of a patch and at the end of a patch, or both in the same patch together? I think that's arguably worse or just as bad as the negatives in the current situation. All this is to say that my personal opinion is that double banners were an all-around benefit to the game, and that's not even going over the mass benefit that they brought to the weapon banner. Now cue all the people being like, the weapon banner is just for whales, and yes, whales are probably more likely to wish on the weapon banner than anyone else, but there are plenty of free-to-play players or low spenders or any kind of player that wish on the weapon banner. If you already have a wealth of well-built options for the Spiral Abyss to cover many elemental scenarios, then wishing for extra characters, especially if you're just padding on a bunch of DPS on your account, isn't exactly as productive as wishing for a weapon. So that kind of choice may lead a lot of players to the weapon banner, and having weapons like Skyward weapons or Aquila Favonia just show up on the weapon banner less because we're more likely to get two signature weapons at once, that is a great thing. The weapon banner is way better than it used to be. While some standard weapons like Skyward Harp or Aquila Favonia have some uses, they're just generally not as strong as signature weapons, so I'd much rather roll on a weapon banner with two signatures than a weapon with a standard and a signature. Okay, so there's my general stance about what I think about double banners. I think they're amazing. I think they were 100% benefit to the game. So let's talk about the math of it now. From 1.0's launch to today of me recording this video, which is version 3.4, we have had 23 limited characters released. And that is 23 characters over 869 days, also known as 21 versions of the game. It averages out to be about one character a version, obviously a little bit more, because some patches we have two, and then other patches we have none, and it's all reruns. Just because I know there are going to be some dumb comments that say this if I don't bring it up, 3 versions were shortened at the beginning of 3.0, and that was only to make up for the fact that version 2.6 was extended by 3 weeks, which averages out 3 patches with 1 week shaved off each and 1 patch with 3 weeks added on. We're right back on track to what they probably had planned for the game since the beginning. So with that said, on average, we can expect 8.7 versions a year, which we're just going to round up to 9. Since the new norm appears to be double banners all of the time instead of just some of the time, like when they first got released, that means we're going to see about 36 new 5 stars a year. Well, not new, but 36 slots for potential 5 stars a year. Now remember, we got to shave about 9 off that number because we get about 9 new 5 stars a year. That leaves us with 27 slots for potential reruns. It's actually a little bit more than that, which is just a little bit of a problem because, as I said, we already have 23 limited characters in the game. That only leaves us with 4 flex slots a year, which isn't really feasible considering that many characters get reruns sooner, either because they're popular or because they're featured in events, maybe because they don't sell so well and they just don't want to rerun them like Klee. When an event heavily features and focuses a character, especially a 5-star that gives a lot of screen time, it's going to make people want to pull for that character. I mean, need I remind people that people weren't too jazzed about Eula, then all of a sudden they released this. And then all of a sudden people are willing to throw their wallets at the screen. That's literally all it takes. Now, a lot of people were probably joking around, but if you think that not one person was serious, you are very naive. You know how many streamers and people I saw being like, oh, I'm skipping Ayaka, and then they saw her little dance in the water and they were like, I'm pulling for it. It doesn't take much to endear people to a character, so a whole event dedicated to them, of course it's going to drum up more sales, but they're going to run them at the same time, which is why a character like Arataki Ito, who has only been released for a year and 2 months, has already been ran 3 times. If they want to keep having the freedom to just run characters whenever they show up in popular events, then we're going to need more than 2 banners. I mean, we can already look at a case like Shenhe, a character that released a patch after Ito, yet she hasn't even got her first rerun yet, while Ito has already gotten 2, which is probably a pretty cold take to say that that's kind of messed up. Just imagine how bad it would be if we were still running single banners all the time. I can mention 4 stars a little bit, but they're really not much of an issue. We only have 28 4 stars that show up on banner, and we've only had 17 new ones since the launch of the game. Since we see 3 4 stars per banner, banner, and you know, we have 2 sets of banners per version, we're going to get about 54 a year. That's more than enough to include every single one and some of them multiple times. I don't really think 4 stars are that much of an issue, but you know, being able to see them even more and cycle them even more, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Now, I would appreciate that greatly. There are times in the past where I've wished on banners with 5 stars that I didn't necessarily care about just to get some cons of a new 4 star, because I don't know when they're going to come back and what banner they're going to be on. Now, knowing that we could potentially see 9 a version thanks to something like triple banners, that would be a great source of comfort for me, especially when it comes to new 4 stars coming out. Obviously, what I think we need is triple banners. Waiting a year for a character to come back is way too long, and it's not like Shenna is some unique case. We've had other characters that take a long time to come back as well, because we just have so many to get through. Every time a character like Xiao gets rerun when he was only here like a matter of patches ago, somebody is going to be upset about that. Hell, even Hu Tao is missing for quite a while, and she's even a very popular top tier character. And with more characters being released every single year, that's probably not going to change, nor would people want it to. While some people have already found their favorite character that is never going to be dethroned, a lot of people's favorite characters have yet to come. We also need this constant influx of characters to keep the game fresh. We need new characters to value old stats, give new life to artifact sets that maybe never had a chance, introduce new mechanics and new ways to play the game that are interesting, like Wanderer being able to fly around, or a character like Nilou completely changing a reaction if you build a team in a specific way. No matter whether you like the exploration, the combat, maybe the fluff events that don't really involve either of those things and just involve a lot of dialogue, new characters feed all of it. They help almost every aspect of the gameplay, not to mention they help keep the game alive because it's how Hoyoverse makes their money. And if Genshin stops making money, they stop making Genshin. That's just how businesses go. Now, obviously, they don't need to do triple banners to keep releasing new characters. That's a ridiculous thing to claim. They can just keep piling it on and making the quote-unquote problem even worse. If I was to imagine somebody's biggest arguments against triple banners, I would imagine one of the first ones would be being intimidating to new players. And I absolutely agree with that. When I first started Genshin, gacha games weren't exactly my forte. I've only played a couple of them, and it was only for a brief moment, enough for me to say this is garbage and to throw it away, like Fire Emblem Heroes. So when I first started playing Genshin and I opened up the banner screen and I see 4 banners, you know, Klee's banner and a weapon banner and the standard banner and the Noelle beginner banner, I was like, well, which of these do I pick? I didn't know. You can certainly look up guides for these things, read up and see which banner is worth it, ask other players, and you know, some people do that. Some people get intimidated by it, turn around, and they never look at Genshin again. And of course it's going to happen. But think of this the other way. Maybe they don't get intimidated by that at first, and they keep playing, and then they get introduced to a character they love. Maybe they decide, hey, I really love what Shenna does. I can't wait till she gets reran. Only to find out that maybe her rerun literally just happened, and her previous gap was huge, meaning that it could be huge again. And in that time, a whole bunch of new characters are going to be released, increasing that gap even more. It's tough to say which of these would arguably be worse for the newer player experience. If you were to ask me, I would think that the second one would be worse in that you have to wait a very long time for a character you might fall in love with. I'm also not the type of person to be intimidated by something by like how many banners there are. I may be a little confused of which one to spend my money on, but I would just wait, be patient, and either ask people or learn over time. On the other hand, having to wait so long for existing characters and it getting worse and worse and worse as more new characters get released, I believe is inarguably worse for existing players who've been playing for a long time. Now, there are some arguments and some questions I could see people asking, like what about the weapon banner? Well, I think you could do a few things to it. You could either split it up. I think it would be kind of cool if you could make like a choose your own banner kind of thing. Like let's say you have Staff of Homa, Thundering Pulse, and Mist Splitter, and you could say like, I want my 2 5 stars that I'm rolling for to be Mist Splitter and Homa, or you could say make it Homa and Thundering Pulse. Like just choose the 2 you want, and then you roll on the banner. That's probably a little bit too generous, and I don't think we'd ever get that. Another alternative is simply just having 3 2-week banners instead of 2 3-week banners. I could see that receiving some negative pushback since that is less time to save and spend on a character than we currently have, but it is a potential solution, and then it doesn't have the question of, well, what do you do with the weapon banner, because then you would just have 3 weapon banners. You could also just stuff 3 weapons on the banner and then change the epitomized path so that it only takes 1 failure to get it, so it feels more like the limited character banner where like you get a failure and then you get what you want. But I mean, there's any number of ways you can approach it to remedy the problem. There are simple solutions. There are probably more elegant ones that would take a little bit more thought than I could think of just spitballing here. Ultimately, I just think that triple banners, they're a necessity now. We are at that point, the point where character reruns are going to start becoming very slow and only getting worse and worse every single version. There's a few things I would be interested to know from people in the comments. Did you hate double banners at first, and have you come around on them? Do you still hate them? Do you like the idea of triple banners? Are you vehemently against the idea of them? In any case, thank you to my members and my patrons for supporting me directly. Links to my socials down below if you would like to become one of them. Thank you to you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Attaboy!